Hello everyone, and this is a video on the new features in Octane 4. Okay, now, since I'm primarily an Octane user, even though I've made trainings for almost all the renderers that are available for Houdini, most of my day-to-day work I tend to use Octane. And version 4 has quite a few new features, so I wanted to just cover some of those. Now, I did make an Octane 4 video like a few months back, but that was like a very early build and I just wanted to like show a few things. This is Octane 4 release candidate 2. Like if I look at it here, so there you go. So this is 4 release candidate 2. What that means is that this is the official, well, this is a feature locked version. Like they're not going to add any more new features for version 4. So once version 4 is officially released, then they'll start adding more new features. But right now, whatever they have is pretty much done and they're just doing bug fixes. And even at a bug fix level, this is fair, like this is extremely stable. I have had 0 crashes with this version so far. So from a feature standpoint, the reason for doing this video was because the features that they announced, they kind of released it in like a very piecemeal version. So version 4 experimental build 1 came out in like March 19th. So about 6 months ago. And 6 months? I don't know. Something like that. Yeah, so about 6 months ago. And they announced some features there, and then as they released more builds, they kept sort of like adding more features, so everything is sort of like all over the place. So I wanted to just make a video where I could just cover most of them, or the ones that are of interest to me, okay, in general. Okay, so starting from top, like I made a list. Okay, so there are about, I won't cover all of these. But the interesting thing about Octane 4 is that it solves a lot of the major productivity issues that were there with Octane. Okay, so like the major issues were processing time was really slow on massive scenes. Scene interactivity could slow down as well. The big thing was there wasn't a single universal shader, like what Redshift has or Arnold has, which sort of like I just have one material and I can make everything in there. That wasn't there with Octane. So every time you had to do even like a slightly complex thing, you would have to start layering materials, which was irritating. And then also it wasn't following the standard like metalness roughness workflow. Which is now sort of standard, especially if you're using like Substance Painter, Substance Designer, any of those kind of things. So implementing those maps into Octane was also sort of problematic. The denoiser is now inbuilt. It also has it also supports volumes now, so that is also there. It still doesn't support hair, so the hair will come in 4.1. Okay, it finally supports light linking. So light linking was actually a feature for 4.1, but they kind of added it into 4. So that is nice. Out of core geometry, in my previous video, I have demonstrated this. I can't demonstrate it anymore because now it's automatic, which means that the minute your GPU RAM gets exceeded, it will automatically start pushing over to the CPU RAM. So the scenes that I have, I don't have anything that massive, so I won't be able to test it. But if you see my previous video, I do demonstrate it. Okay, then the other things that I won't sort of be demonstrating, but they're there, is if you finally have like UDIM support, but it currently doesn't support displacement. Displacement still remains an issue with Octane. Like it does good displacement, but it can't do like when you have boxes, the edges tear apart, those kind of things are still sort of there. I have a feeling they're going to repair it in 4.1 because they've demonstrated some stuff which looks very interesting. Okay, you can now import layers from a multi-layer EXR, which is interesting. There is a new Sun and Sky model, okay, which I'll try and demonstrate within the standalone version. And there is texture compression, which is essentially for saving RAM. So it can do up to 8:1 texture compression without, with like bare minimal loss in quality. So if you're using a lot of textures and you want to save RAM, I think, that's where this comes in. But I'm going to try and demonstrate, most of this. Okay, yeah, and the one I forgot is AI Lite. Like, this is not in any particular order. I was just writing it down as I remembered stuff. But AI Lite is extremely interesting. It is really good when you have a scene which has a ton of lights and especially a lot of small lights. So that is where AI Lite sort of comes in. Okay, so I'm going to start off by sort of talking a little bit about, like these two things, and then we'll continue from there. All right, so most of this stuff I'll demonstrate within Houdini, but some of it I might demonstrate within Octane Standalone. I have been using Standalone a fair bit recently. I do like it. Like, I've always liked the concept of having a standalone render engine, or a standalone like rendering software, kind of like what Clarice is or Keyshot is. So Octane Standalone is kind of like that. I like it in, for my work because I mostly do stills. It's not, it's pretty good for that kind of work. Anyways, so let's start off with the most basic stuff, which is like scene processing in general. Okay, so I'm going to like this particular scene. I have it loaded up in Octane 3.08, and the thing to remember is that the plugin actually is slightly slower. Okay, if I do the same thing with Octane 4 in the standalone version, it actually goes a little bit faster. I think when you plug it into the software, it sort of takes up slightly more time, like not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the timer, okay, and just to sort of time it out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press play here, start the timer, and then click on render target. All right, so I'm going to click on the render target and then, or let's press play here and then click on the render target to see how long Octane 3 takes. Okay, so yeah, there you go. And the idea is to see, how long it takes to, like, it shows up here, compiling scene, that's your pre-processing. So we'll figure out how long it takes. If you haven't seen it, there is an Octane 5 video as well, or, well, technically it's not 5 anymore. Okay, so what they're doing is, like, after Octane 4, they're going to go into like a yearly release, sort of like what Substance Designer and Substance Painter is doing right now, which is like whatever features you get in a year, it sort of just releases that in point version. So there you go. So this was roughly about 40 seconds. This is a relatively decent scene. This is about, I'm guessing about 8 million polygons. Yeah, 8 million polygons. Okay, and it is pretty heavily instanced. So if I kind of zoom out here, you'll see like this is pretty heavy overall. Like, yeah, so it's a little dark. Let me make it brighter. But there you go. So this is pretty massive as a scene. So there's like a ton of instancing going on, but yeah, there is a fair bit of geometry in there. Okay, so I'm going to stop this. And now let's, load this up in Octane 4. Okay, so I'm going to like clear this out and let's press play and I'll hit IPR. So yeah, we're in the same place. It's pre-processing. And yeah, that's about 8 seconds. Yeah, that's about 8 seconds. So yeah, overall pretty fast. Okay, I'll also do another scene with hair, but let me just talk about one more thing before we do that. The other thing that they have improved a lot is also like, scene interactivity. So I think where all of this comes from is at one point of time, Octane was building something called Brigade, which was going to be, or Otoy was building it. So which was essentially going to be like a ray traced game engine. I guess it was too early for its time because we don't have the hardware to do like full, ray tracing in real time. It just isn't available. But because you're building a game engine, what it has to do is that you have to have like fluid interactivity and you also need to have really fast scene processing. Okay, like from a game engine standpoint. So game meshes are generally lighter, but you're still going to have a fair bit of mesh, and it also has to run at at least 30 FPS. So what they did was they essentially took the Brigade technology and added it into Octane. So which is where I think the faster processing and faster scene manipulation comes from. Okay, so now you can, because these meshes are not game meshes, right? This is going to be a lot heavier. But because you're implementing that technology, you still get like massive speed ups than what was before. So just to sort of demonstrate a little bit again, if I close this and let me just build this up once more. Yeah, once it's processed it, once it sort of remains in RAM, so it's faster. But just to sort of show you, if I zoom out and if I come here, so this is like this one entire line is instanced. So if I try to move that, which should be, yeah, this guy. So if I take this and I try to move it, and you'll see how slow it gets. So when you move it, it basically does that. Okay, so it's pretty slow. Okay, now doing the same thing within Octane 4. Yeah, let me just clear that out. With the plugin, it has to process it every single time. So every time I close it, it has to sort of like rebuild the scene again. To some extent, I guess. Okay, so if I go to camera 1 and let me just pick up something. So if I just take like all of these, which is like one single instanced geometry, and let me just zoom out a bit. Yeah, and if I try to move that, you'll see how smooth it is now. So whatever you had before, like the scene interactivity and pre-processing is at least 5 to 10 times faster than whatever was before. So it is pretty massive. Okay, another thing that, since I'm in this scene itself, another thing that they have added, let me just undo the movement. Yeah. So another thing that's been added is light linking. Okay, so it's slightly different. So I'll just demonstrate how it's done. Let me change the interactive camera to camera 2. Okay. So just to demonstrate this, I have like one light on top over here. Okay, let me zoom into this. Yeah, so if you can see, I have like this one light here, which is a blue light that is coming on the chair. So let's say I don't want this light to affect the chair anymore. So the way it works is like that's my light, and I have a shader for it. So you come into the shader and you get something called a light ID, a light pass ID. Okay, so I'll give it a number. And if you want like multiple lights to shut off, or multiple lights or multiple objects to not be interacted, you just have to remember the number. Okay, so you can have like all of these lights and this one to have the same ID, and then you can turn off all of them in one shot. So you just say like light ID 3, and then we come to this is my chair. So what you have to do is you add the object properties, like the object parameters, and you'll get something called as a light pass mask. You get about 8 of them. Okay, so you can do like various combinations. You can also turn off the sun and turn off the environment. So if I don't want this to have the environment, then you can turn off, which doesn't, like, there isn't much of an environment here anyways. Anyway, so that was 3. So if I just turn off 3, and there you go. So it turns off 3. Okay, and then you can sort of like turn it on as well. Okay. So yeah, so it's fairly straightforward with what you can do. So you can have multiple lights doing the same stuff and just turn things on and off. Okay, so that's as far as scene interactivity and light linking is concerned. The other interesting thing, which I'll have to demonstrate in Octane standalone, because I haven't built that scene in Octane in Houdini. So AI light is a fairly interesting thing. Okay, so I'm just going to like turn on Octane 4. So what AI Lite does essentially is it's sort of like doing better sampling for smaller light sources. So I have this one thing called a city. Yeah. So let me just turn it on. This scene is actually, I picked it up from Daz. Like I'd bought a library of Daz which had like city blocks. So I just brought that in here. It doesn't have shaders. Okay. So I'm just going to like turn this on. Let it render. Okay. And so I have rendered this before. Okay. So I'm just going to show you the base scene which does not have the AI Lite. Okay, so I have it somewhere here. Yeah, so this is the base scene that I have. Okay, like this is what is rendering right now. So I'm just going to like say view actual size. Okay, and all you have to do is like the previous techniques still work. Like you can go into specific lights and turn on or increase the sampling and do all of those things. But with AI Lite, you don't need to do it to a large extent. So the way it works is you just turn on AI Lite and that's basically it. Okay, so I'll just give it some time to render and you should be able to see a difference. So let me just bring this up to one side. I also have the denoiser on in this, but we'll talk about the denoiser in general. So this scene actually has a lot of lights. Okay, like there are a lot of street lights, there are smaller lights on the billboard. Okay, and there you go. So even like at this level, if I just maximize this, you can see like this massive difference over here. Like look at the shadow on the wall. Okay, and even the billboard in general, okay, is a lot cleaner. Also, like if you look at the road, okay, the road is like really clean. And even if you look at the billboard, okay, so the billboard is actually like, it kind of varies. So the billboard is roughly the same. No, actually, yeah. So the billboard is also cleaner, okay, than what it was before. So when you have scenes which have like massive amounts of lights, the AI Lite literally works like magic. This is the same render time. This was 37 seconds. This is 38 seconds. But you just have to, the nice thing is you just have to turn it on. Like you don't have to do anything else. Okay, like most of the places you can see, like even the anti-aliasing on these guys is like a lot better. Like if you look at how, you know, like the anti-aliasing on this, and then if you look at the anti-aliasing here, so you can see like how bad this is. Okay, like because it really didn't get enough samples. So with the same number of samples, AI Lite works a lot better than whatever was there before. Okay, so let me just stop that and I'll minimize this. Okay, I won't do much with denoiser, but I'll just show you like a basic example of it. So let me just turn on IPR. The one thing to remember with denoiser is that you don't want it to be like, don't do very low samples and hit a denoise and expect it to work like magic. It won't. Okay, like you have to let there be enough samples so there is enough detail in the texture and everything. And then the denoiser can actually, you know, the denoiser is good for reducing like the final, say 20% of noise. Okay, not like removing 50% of noise, which is also possible. Just don't expect great quality, but it's great for doing previews. Like, you know, if you want to do that kind of extreme denoising, it's great for doing previews. But for production level, usually get it to like, you know, like 80% of the quality you want. And the last bit of noise, which is always difficult to clean, is where the denoiser comes in. Okay, so the way it works is fairly simple. Okay, if you come to the imager, and you will find the denoiser in there. So I can just come down and you will find enable denoising. And if you turn it on, it will restart the render. Okay. You can also denoise volumes now. I don't have a volume scene, but I'll do another one later. The one thing to remember with volumes is they say usually you should have about 1,000 samples for volumes, but you can work with lesser as well. Okay, like, yeah, so right now it's going to show you the denoised version. I'm going to reduce the number of samples. Let's bring this down to 500. So in case you're wondering, I'm currently using just a single GPU. I have two, but I'm rendering just on the 1080. I'm not using the 1080 Ti or anything like that. Okay, so this is pretty decent render times. Yeah, so there you go. So this is the denoise and this is the not denoise version. And you can also like blend between the denoise and not denoise. So if I just come to the imager and you can do like a blend here, see, let me just zoom in a bit. So we can do a slightly bigger render. Okay, yeah, let this render through. And let's get it lower. You know, let's try to bring it to only about 200 samples. The one thing I realized if you're doing denoising is you should try to keep the noise to static. Okay, then the noise doesn't, if the noise pattern doesn't change from frame to frame, the denoiser tends to do a better job. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. So if I come to the imager again, and then it has this option which says show denoise, but my blend is completely on 1 at the moment. So see, this is the clean version and this is the denoise version. Usually I like to keep it around like 0.3. So you retain a little bit of the noise, which makes it look a little bit sharper. Okay, and then you can just, but you can also do passes. You know, like you can save the denoise and the non-denoise version. You can do that. You also get like, if you do the render passes now, you have options for denoised passes as well. So you can do denoise, direct, indirect, you know, like all of that stuff is also available. So yeah, so this is as far as the denoiser is concerned. It does hold up fairly well. Like this is pretty low samples, which is why like you can see the buttons are a little like they've lost detail over there. Like that's the full version. This is the denoised version. So which is why I said like keep it around 0.3. 0.3 is like good, but it still does like a fantastic job. You know, like removing noise and, you know, even within like depth of field and stuff, it does a very good job. Okay, so this is as far as denoising is concerned. Now let's go to, you know, something a little more fun. Okay, so I'm going to come to like this basic material that I have. So I picked it up from Substance Painter. The Substance Painter had like a competition a while back where they wanted to, like, I'm going to close this as well. Okay. Yeah, so they built up this guy, and then you had to, like, you know, texture it in Substance Painter. So I decided it's a good way to demonstrate the new material. So I'm going to turn on Substance Painter as well. So what I'm showing right now is the implementation of the metalness roughness workflow, okay, which wasn't there before. So let me render this once just to show you what I have. So I have this. This is the basic guy. Okay. And I've assigned the universal material to it, which is here. So this is the universal material. So this is the full shader. So you can do everything in this. Like you have, like you don't have all the outputs being shown here, but you have like your dispersion, you have medium. So you can do subsurface scattering and absorption. You have emission inbuilt. You can switch between, like you can have glass or solid. So you have like all of that stuff inbuilt here now. Okay, so I'm going to open up the file. So I just built like a really basic shader, okay, like nothing fancy, but I just wanted to see, like, you know, how well it works. So yeah, so this is what I have. Okay, so I exported the maps to like the basic stuff. So I have a metalness, I have a metal map, roughness, diffuse color, and then the basic stuff. So we're going to set this up. So I'm going to turn on IPR. I picked up the same HDR that is there, just so that, you know, we can match it 100%. So I'm going to start off with like texture image RGB, and let me just start picking up the map. So you can see like it has this option here which says choose image layer, which is for like if you load an EXR which has layers in it. And okay, so I'm going to just click here and let me just pick this up. Yeah, so I'm going to start off with base color, and you really don't need to do anything. So just connect it to albedo, and yeah. Okay. Sometimes if the render goes through completely, then it sort of stops updating. Okay, so then let's pick up a texture image grayscale, and we'll pick up the metallic. So plug that in. Okay, and then we need, we'll just do Control-C, Control. And we'll pick up the roughness and plug that into roughness. And then we can pick up the text. We can pick up an RGB again because I want to pick up the normal. So I'll pick up the normal DirectX, and that goes into normals. And then lastly, if I want, I can pick up the height map as well, which can go into bump. So there you go. Like fairly standard, nothing, you don't need to layer anything, you don't need to do anything complicated. If I turn on this, see, there you go. You get pretty much like, let me pick focus here. Yeah, but there you go. You get like a pretty much like a 1:1 comparison. So that's a big thing that they solved. Okay, but beyond this, the basic shader is actually really nice. Okay, so you can do a ton of things with it. So let me just disconnect this. We'll take another universal shader, and I'll just show you some of the basic things you can do with it. So what you can do now is pretty much everything. Like if you want to do, say, like metallic paint. Okay. So if I just take this, I'll increase the metalness to like 100%. I'll give it some roughness. And then all I have to do is come into the coating, and give it a secondary layer of reflection. That's basically it. Okay. Like, so all the layering and stuff you had to do before, that's gone. You don't need to do any of it anymore. Okay, another thing you can do now is, let me just close this. I'll just take like multiple of these. If you want to do glass, you don't have the input here, it's not showing it, but I'll make this black. And then all you have to do is you can take like an RGB color and just plug it into transmission, and there you go. You can do glass. I'll just increase the number of bounces. I don't think how many bounces do I, yeah, 4 is not good. We'll take it up to 10. We'll take both of them to 10. And then all of the other stuff is in there. Like I can come down here and turn on fake shadows. Okay, you can, you have dispersion inbuilt, so all of that is there. And then you can also do all of the other stuff. So if I want to give it absorption, so I can take absorption and plug that into medium, and let's give it some color. So we'll give it like, and lower the density. See, so you can do stuff like that. The roughness works for both, so I can just increase the roughness to make it. You can also do subsurface scattering, so that works as well. So if I just keep this to a side and I pick up medium scattering and plug that in. So the same stuff, like let me just give this some color. I'll lower that. So if the scattering is at black, it works like standard absorption. But then if you get the scattering to 1, see, there you go. You have subsurface scattering. And then I can take the roughness like really high. You also have all the other models inbuilt now. So you have like Beckman and GGX, which are the standard models. And then like what you couldn't do before, which was always a problem, is having like subsurface scattering and then doing specular on top of it. So, but now you can do that. Like you can just add coating and you're done. Okay, so pretty straightforward. And now since it is all inbuilt into a single material, you can also do like film width on top of it, which will make it look surprisingly weird. But yeah, you can do that as well. And then of course you have emission inbuilt as well. So, if you want, so you don't need to have, so all of the other materials are kind of, they're still there, but you don't need to use them anymore. You don't need the diffuse, you don't need glossy, specular, none of it. All of it can be done through like a single material. The last thing I want to show you, I've set it up in Octane standalone, so I'm going to show it over there. You can also do cloth. Okay, so you have the option for sheen. Okay, which actually is good if I do it on cloth. Okay, so I'm just going to like open up 4 just to show you that. The problem was that I wanted to do like a new features video, but the Houdini plugin wasn't out yet. So I was setting up stuff in like Octane standalone, and then the Houdini plugin came out. So I have some stuff set up in Octane standalone and some stuff I've set up in Houdini, which is why I'm sort of like jumping in between, but the rules don't change. Okay, so I'm just going to turn on this thing. Yeah. And let me just bring in, so I have like this basic cloth that I have, okay, which I'm going to just, bring it in there. Yeah, so what I have at the moment is just like I have a basic cloth. This is already built up. So I'm going to like get rid of the sheen altogether. And I'm going to give it some color. Okay. So what I have is fairly simple. I have this one like a cotton texture, which I'm multiplying with a color. So if I wanted to be of a specific color, then I can do that. And I'm also plugging it into bump. Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing. So I have removed reflection altogether. So I don't want any specular, which will look weird on this. So what sheen does is it almost works like, it works basically like a fall off map. Okay, but it's inbuilt, so it's better. So you just come to the sheen layer and you can just give it, some value. See, you can already see, like a bit of a fall off coming here. If you increase this value, you'll see the change. But where it becomes interesting is, let me make this slightly, more colorful. Yeah. Is if I start to change the color, then you'll start seeing the difference. See. So if you want to do like a if you want to do something like silk or satin and stuff like that, that is where it really sort of comes into play. See. So if I take this and let's say if I make it black completely, see, now you can see the sheen layer coming through. So it is really good for doing cloth. And you just have to increase like the roughness value to decide how much it blends in. Earlier I used to do this stuff with a fall off map, which is still there. You can still use fall off. Like if you want a little more extreme, then you just go with fall off. But at basic level, this has recently been added into Arnold as well. Like they had put up some images, but yeah, so now you have this option as well. It's pretty nice. See, like, because it makes a huge difference, like if you remove the sheen, see, this is without sheen and then this is with. So you do get like a pretty massive difference. Okay, so this is essentially it. So this is everything that I wanted to cover as far as, Octane 4 is concerned. Now, one of the reasons I'm kind of, excited about Octane again is because in the past 6 months, they've sort of, moved fairly quickly. Like, as I said, like Octane 4 sort of came together in just 6 months, which is very fast comparing like last year, there was like, they were almost in like radio silence where I was trying to wonder like what exactly is going on. But like since March, they've been sort of doing very regular updates, and they've also been like implementing features fairly quickly, so which is definitely a good thing. Okay, so with the next version, as I said, like what they're doing now is they're going to go into like yearly point releases, not one release a year, but they'll just keep releasing like what Substance is doing now, where you get like a summer release and a winter release. Like whenever you have features ready, you just, add those rather than doing like, oh, here's Octane 4, here's Octane 5, which I think is a smart idea. Like it's better to do it that way. So you have like 2-3 features ready, you just, like throw them in. But yeah, so what they're doing with Octane 4.1 or 2018.1 as it's going to be called, is like, so 2 things that are coming in. One is they're finally adding like CryptoMat support, so that is good. And the second, which I think every Houdini user will be like really excited about, is they're adding attributes. And right now I am sort of like, they will deliver, because the speed at which they've delivered Octane 4, I'm pretty sure they'll deliver within this year as well. Okay, so along with attributes and like CryptoMat support, there's a lot of other stuff coming in as well. There's going to be like a proper hair shader and like a whole bunch of things. I'll put a link to the Octane 5 or 2018.1 video. At the end of it, they put up a list of things that are going to come. They're implementing 2 like relatively fancy technologies, even though they will have like practical implementations as well. But they're going to do that, and then they put up like a list as well. So I'll put a link to that in the video, like in the description below. So if you're interested, you can watch that. Okay, so from whatever I can gather so far, they're going to release one more release candidate. So we will get Octane 4 RC3 and then they'll go final. Okay, so because right now from reading on the forums, there really aren't a lot of bugs within RC2. There are like a few minor ones, which are like really extreme cases. Like there's a case where you have like 19 GPUs and it causes some issue. I've never even seen 4 in my life. Anyways, so there's stuff like that. Okay, so it's like really, extreme case scenarios. But overall, this version is extremely stable. So if you want to use it, I think you can. But that's up to you. Alright, so that's basically it. And I'll be doing, I've been thinking of doing like an intro to particles video, or like a series of videos on Houdini particles. So I've been lazy for a while. So I'll start doing that from next week onwards.